on China. Derek Scissors, senior research fellow from the Heritage Foundation. Good to have you back on the show, Derek. So for a lot of folks who aren't familiar with this meeting, there's one or two, sometimes three per year. I mean, these are big meetings. They make the call. The dates are unknown now, but later they'll be known, of course.
Right.
What do you think should be the expectations?
Well, I think these are big meetings. They've been big meetings in the past. Why? Because they're the first party meeting of the new leadership. The leadership's appointed last year at this time, then the government comes in. This is their first meeting being in charge. But the expectation should probably be tempered, because when we've seen big changes in the past, there's been a lot of run-up. This time there really hasn't been a lot of run-up, and that raises some questions about how much can be accomplished.
So this is the third meeting. Xi Jinping has been there. I mean, this isn't really new anymore.
Right.
Did we get the reforms we were expecting?
We haven't gotten really much of anything yet. We've gotten a lot of talk, which is encouraging, but I don't think it's fair to say to expect to have gotten a lot yet, because he's been there for a while. But this is, you don't immediately when you take office say, oh, the guys before me, they were all wrong, I'm changing everything they're going to do. You just don't do that. So there had to be some time, some transition. Now's the time, if he's going to make changes, to make them.
So we've talked about planning, we've talked about changes. Third meeting now is potentially, they'll obviously talk about it some more, but how close do you think they are to some sort of action?
It doesn't look like they're that close. And the example I use is the 93 meeting. 92, Deng Xiaoping goes on the Southern tour, it's very famous, restarts reform. 93 formalizes all that, it lays out a vision. We really haven't had that lead up yet. And so that means they're still they still haven't figured out where they're going. The Shanghai Free Trade Zone is a nice idea, but what vision is it tied to? What's China trying to do with a free trade zone? We haven't seen that yet.
This corruption thing that we've been talking about, obviously there's this other trial that's happening in Beijing right now that a lot of people are watching. But that aside, it has been a big issue and big focus for Xi Jinping. I mean, he has flat out said a number of times, both publicly and of course privately, that they want to stamp out corruption. Is it working, you think?
I think that's a really key point. We've seen this week that a number of senior officials at a state-owned oil company have been taken into custody for questioning. This is a serious effort on his part. So one thing that outsiders might look for is, well, I don't see market-oriented reform. But maybe Xi Jinping, Li Keqiang, et cetera, they're thinking about corruption, fighting corruption, that kind of reform. That they have taken steps there. That does look like a serious effort.
This rule of law, a lot of foreign companies, a lot of foreign people want there to be this sort of legal backdrop, because if there's an issue, they have someplace to go to, whereas right now it's a bit gray, if you will. Is that one of the reforms that you'd like to see them work on?
What we'd like to see, that ties into something that's happened recently. The antitrust law, the anti-monopoly law has been used against foreign firms, and maybe with reason. But we have giant state monopolies in China that everyone knows about. What you want to see is the rule of law applies to everyone. And if that's what foreigners want to look at, that would be a big step forward. China has the laws, but sometimes it seems like it only applies to some people, and other people get off scot-free.
So here's the two problems in China. You have the political situation. Not that that's a problem, but they want to sort of stamp out that corruption. Then you have this this elephant in the room, the economy, whether it's growing at 7 or 8%. Everybody wants more growth. They're trying to get jobs. How hard is it for the administration there to balance both of those, or do you think they can get both at the same time?
I think they can get both, but it's going to take a lot of leadership and a lot of courage. Reform, market-oriented reform, will deliver growth, but it's going to gore some people's oxes. They're going to have to compete for stuff that they've been given before. Those are the people I think that are the most corrupt, the people who have been given things that haven't had to compete. You take on corruption, you take on the economic problem at the same time, but it requires courage.
A lot of courage. Derek Scissors, Heritage Foundation, thank you very much. Always good to have you on. Coming up.